We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
If we do not renew our partnerships with the rest of the world, Europe will not be relevant.
We can make it if we are together as Europeans.
Do you genuinely believe that countries will manage to reach these very ambitious targets?
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Aoife White. I'm Politico's Technology and Competition Editor, and you're watching Politico Live, the live extension of our non-partisan journalism. Today, we want to dive into the cloud and ask how Europe is doing. The cloud matters. It promises to deliver services more quickly and easily to businesses across Europe. It increasingly provides the backbone for artificial intelligence services. It helps us work from home even. It has immense potential to help businesses become more efficient and, to use the C word, competitive. We know there are ambitious targets for EU businesses. 3/4 of EU companies should be using cloud, AI or big data by 2030 under the European Commission's Digital Decade target. It's relatively easy to set targets. It's far harder to hit them, since there are a number of reasons why cloud services might not be adopted so quickly. Are they available? Are they easy to use? Do businesses see a good reason to make changes or investments to take advantage of cloud services? There isn't one solution, and there isn't one actor in this world, public or private, that can make this happen. But we plan to drill more deeply into the rationale, the obstacles, and the potential solutions in just a few minutes. Thank you to our sponsor, Google, for making this event series possible, and a warm thank you to our audience for joining us in person and online. We want to make this event as interactive as possible. You can participate by tweeting about it or using your social media of your choice at @LivePolitico and asking questions through Slido using the hashtag #NavigateCloud. Please add a name and an organisation. We'll prioritise those questions so it's clear for our viewers and panellists who you are. You can already share your thoughts and answer the following poll presented by Google. What do you consider to be the biggest barrier to cloud adoption in Europe? We'll look at the results at the end of the panel. But before we dive into the panel, I'll let Chris Lindsay, the Vice President of Customer Engineering EMEA at Google Cloud, give some introductory remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning on the live stream too. Hope you can see me. You've already introduced me, so I don't need to introduce myself, but I lead Google Cloud's customer engineering organisation across Europe, Middle East and Africa. My job and my team's job is to work with organisations across the European Union and indeed across that region on their AI transformation and cloud transformation. Now, I'm here today to talk about the need to bolster growth and competitiveness in the cloud and to ensure the principles of choice, flexibility and security can continue to prevail during this critical time that we'll hear much more about later. The cloud represents a transformative force poised to reshape our economies, unlock innovation and empower businesses, whether that's small or large, and compete globally. However, barriers to growth threaten to hinder this progress, as we all know, leaving Europe trailing behind in the global digital race. Now, today, I want to say a few words about the cloud's potential and how to remove some of these barriers and blockers. Now, as we all know, the cloud is no longer a niche technology. It's the foundation of our modern digital economy. It underpins our digital ambitions, and from driving advances in artificial intelligence to enabling small businesses to access all the same technologies as larger corporations. Cloud computing is also the engine for powering AI and the AI revolution we hear so much about. It provides the computational power and resources needed to develop, train and deploy sophisticated AI models and applications. Now, research commissioned by us, by Google, and published last month showed that generative AI has the potential to lift annual productivity growth in Europe by 1.4%, putting that into euro terms, drive an increase in GDP of 1.2 to 1.4 trillion euros, a quite astonishing amount. Now, this growth can only be led by meaningful partnerships across European countries. Let me give you a couple of examples. Energy provider ENGIE in France, Google Cloud. My team is using AI to predict how much wind power should be sold on which power market and at what price, facilitating the transactions for wind asset developers and creating benefits for wind power producers. With shipping and logistics company CMA CGM, Google Cloud is using AI to optimize vessel routes, container handling, and inventory management, ensuring efficient, timely delivery of goods while maintaining low cost and carbon footprints. And with Dutch recruitment company Randstad, Google Cloud helped deploy Gemini for Workspace, enhancing their relationships internally and externally with candidates, making them more efficient, and critically giving them more time back to focus on the human aspects of their work. Now, as you all know, the cloud is key to European competitiveness. The ability for European countries and organizations to take advantage of new technologies, particularly generative AI, will depend on how well they can establish and scale their own cloud programs. It is not an exaggeration to say Europe's growth ambitions will hinge on the success in the cloud. And companies that effectively integrate generative AI and other technologies in their transformation may achieve up to 7 times return on investment of their peers for each migrated business domain. Now, McKinsey says in a recent report, the vast majority of value European companies have captured remains in isolated pockets and at subscale. Worse, European companies are behind their corporate cousins in North America and Asia. Less than 1/3 of European countries and European enterprises have 50% of their workloads on the cloud. Quite a shocking statistic. Now, as we know, former ECB President Mario Draghi strongly emphasizes the need for Europe to embrace digitization in his report, The Future of European Competitiveness. And we couldn't agree more, frankly. He points out that seizing the benefits of digitization and advanced technologies, the EU's competitiveness requires state-of-the-art infrastructure, including ubiquitous high-speed broadband networks, cloud computing capabilities. The cloud is not an option. It is a necessity for Europe to compete in the 21st century. So I want to say a few words about the barriers that are going to inhibit the adoption of cloud. First, the need for robust and effective infrastructure. To truly unlock the potential of the cloud and seize opportunities in areas like AI, Europe needs to prioritize key investments. This means a massive expansion of data center capacity across the continent, strengthening connectivity and ensuring businesses have access to computational power needed for data analytics, AI applications, and emerging technologies. At the same time, of course, expanding data centers' capability and capacity, data centers are also becoming more efficient. For example, compared to 5 years ago, Google data centers now deliver around 4 times as much computing power per unit of electrical power at our highly efficient data centers. Furthermore, Europe must bolster its supply chains, of course, for critical components like semiconductors to ensure sustainable energy sources to power this digital infrastructure. The second impediment is removing regulatory complexity. This doesn't mean removing regulations. It means simplifying a regulatory regime that now runs the risk of stifling innovation. Think tank Bruegel highlighted that a flood of new regulations under the 2019-2024 mandate creates challenges for businesses, from navigating overlapping EU and national laws to keeping up with amendments and facing varied enforcement across member states. And third, of course, is the skills gap. Outdated IT systems and a lack of skilled professionals are holding back cloud computing growth in Europe. Now, many businesses are stuck with legacy infrastructure, making it difficult and costly to transition to the cloud. This is compounded by a shortage of workers with expertise to implement and manage cloud technologies effectively. To unlock the full potential of the cloud, Europe needs to invest in both modernizing its IT infrastructure and upskilling its workforce. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, is removing restrictive licensing that hinders the openness and interoperability required for true innovation in the European market. At Google, we firmly believe that certain practices by legacy providers in the cloud market are anti-competitive and harm European businesses and consumers. A level playing field is essential for a healthy cloud ecosystem, and that's what we're fighting for. Without this, businesses end up paying up to 400% more on the same cloud software, creating waste and other downstream effects. This is why we filed a complaint with the European Commission. this September, and why other regulators around the world are similarly looking into these issues. Ultimately, customers should be able to work with the cloud provider that best suits their business. So in closing, the future of Europe's digital economy depends on the choices we make right here today. We need to invest in infrastructure, skills, and a regulatory environment that promotes competition, innovation in the cloud market. Google Cloud is committed to being a partner in this journey. We're investing in Europe's future, and we believe that together we can build a cloud ecosystem that empowers businesses, drives growth, and secures Europe's place as a leader in the digital age. Let's work together to make this vision a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That was very comprehensive. You really went through a lot of issues. Chris briefly mentioned a competition complaint that Google has filed on cloud services. We'd like to stress that there's no formal investigation by the European Commission at this point, and that the target of the complaint has made changes to appease some smaller cloud providers. This is one of the many active issues we write about at Politico, so please stay tuned for any further developments. But now I'd like to move to our panel. Let's get right into it and I'd like to welcome on stage Roberto Viola, Director General of DG Connect at the European Commission, and Cecilia Bonafal-Dahl, Director General at Digital Europe, the voice of the European digital industry. We've heard an awful lot there about things that we need to do, and I just wanted to go back to the rationale and maybe ask you, Cecilia, what is the case for cloud? If there are people or companies that are holding back, why, and how do you convince them that they need to invest in cloud?
Well, it's the reasons are different from sector to sector, right? I mean, if you look at the banking sector, there are lengthy processes, financial rules that prevents them for moving in the cloud at the speed that they really want. Then I think we also heard from Chris that, for example, connectivity. There are other technologies that is like the baseline for cloud adoption, also for abroad. And then we have had, discussions about data transfers, etc. So there's been some unclarity. I think we will see that since Ukraine, how much this is not only about competitiveness. It is about definitely competitiveness and efficiency, but also about security. I mean, there's a reason why it's a functioning country still, because some of the big cloud providers basically were able to transport all the public data out of the country at a very short time frame, of a matter of days. And many countries are realizing that their key industries and key public sector institutions need to have these data embassies, and that the whole rule set around how you manage countries at crisis will need to be reviewed. And I think that is where cloud also plays a major role. But when we go back to AI and cloud, I think what we need now is not more regulation. And I think that the Commission agrees on this. At least that's the tones that we hear. No more regulation, but let's use what we have and let's make it more efficient. But on the upcoming Cloud and AI Act, what we are calling for is really an AI and cloud development plan, right? Adoption plan, not a development plan, but an adoption plan. We don't really have a problem with, development of cloud in Europe. There are, it's a mature technology. It keeps on evolving. We have very good players. Those players are also with our allies, so it's not a problem. But there is a lack of adoption and speed of adoption. And what we need now is basically to look at the incentive part. How can we speed up different verticals' adoption of cloud and AI? Because we've been very focused at saying, okay, we don't have cloud providers, maybe we can make a European cloud provider. It's a little bit like chasing the steam engine, in my view, right? Instead of really looking at what we have. If we look at critical technologies, our critical technology big champions are in energy tech. Siemens, Schneider, Vestas, multiple players there. If you look at, so that's critical technology. They all need cloud and AI, but they have their own services. And without that industrial boost in AI and cloud, they will not be the winners. But right now, US also need that. So the international ecosystem of digital, Europe has its strength on energy tech, on connectivity, on biotech. Many of these industries really need a big boost on AI and cloud uptake to remain in that lead position. And I think that is where we will take our international position in the future. And that focus at our champions, Nokia, Ericsson, SAP in additive manufacturing, Siemens, Schneider, which is our, you can say, tech champions, depend on also the adoption and the speeding up of the adoption on AI and cloud.
Roberto, what role do you see for cloud, and how do you convince the industry or even governments as well that this is something that they should be investing in now?
Well, I think when you look at the private sector, you don't convince people to invest in something if they don't see value in it. So the point is to make sure that the segment of European industries which is more traditional, or the SMEs, they understand better cloud, they confidently embrace cloud. And I think you do that the moment they see that they can, for instance, easily switch provider, like in telecom. People can change provider in Europe in 1 hour. They are not locked in by one or the other vendor. And they see value for their business, and their intellectual property is not stolen by others. And I think many different industries, as Cecilia was saying, realizing the power of cloud, the power of AI. We have kind of a pyramid of ways of getting people in the cloud or in, let's say, AI and computing, starting from the tip, which is the super machines that we are sponsoring, the so-called AI factories all around Europe. Then there's the middle, which are our flagship industries and sectors that should adopt and embrace cloud and AI. And then there's the bottom of it, which are the SMEs, 70% of the European economy. And there, what we think it's not a bad idea is to convince them to co-work, to cooperate, to co-create with larger industries, co-providers. And that's what we do in the so-called digital innovation hubs. We have some 250 apps, which are co-sponsored by us, by governments, by private partners. Digital Europe is our esteemed partner in the digital innovation apps. And I wanted them to be part of the AI office. When we constructed the AI office, the digital innovation hub moved inside the AI office, because they reach out in every single region, and they reach out, the deep part of the European economy, the part which is more traditional, the part is more difficult to convince. This is one thing. The other, it's from convincing public administrations, and that is through interoperability standard that was mentioned, very important, and also sometime by being assertive about digital transformation, obliging them to use things like wallets and technologies, e-invoicing and things like this. For instance, the country I know best, it's above average in terms of cloud usage with respect to other countries in Europe, because there's been an obligation to use invoicing. And companies protested a lot, but then they moved into invoice, they moved to the cloud, and now they are happy. So sometimes even a little bit of good salt of regulation helps, the good one, the good one.
The EU's Cloud and AI Development Act is something we're waiting for. Can you give us an idea on timing? And can you also tell us how you expect that will scale computing infrastructure and data storage?
Well, Cloud and AI Development Act comes from Mario Draghi, so he have a pass. That is a good thing by definition. I think we want to make it something useful. I can disclose a secret here. It will not be about regulation, but you know already the secret. Yeah, but Cecilia. Let me open and close a parenthesis. I heard our sponsor today that said we are complaining about certain things and the markets should be open. And we spoke about cloud switching. So a good basis of rules, I think, protect everyone to be in the space. Now, excessive rules is not good. For instance, people forget that there's a regulation called free flow of data. You can establish a data center wherever you like in Europe, and there cannot be one or the other member states imposing you to localize data centers. And this gave quite a boost. So, I mean, one has to go with a microscope because, I mean, the thing in the bubble is to say everything is better, our regulation. Now, in particular in cloud, there are not so many rules. It's important that we, of course, take away the redundancy, things which are useless, but then concentrate on things that make this market work. But I come back to the cloud and development time. By the way, if there are things to fix in regulation, we can also consider that, but this is not the main scope. I think we have been relatively successful with the CHIP Act to attract large corporations and actors who were not investing in Europe. They came to Europe, roughly 80 to 100 billion investment, and especially we have flagship pilot lines which are the best of the world, plus combining with our strengths, companies like ASML that participate to this ecosystem. So creating a world-class ecosystem, it's a bit of matter of incentives, matter of adoption, matter of using well, I mean, energy sources, and matter of being ingenious about new ways to have efficient computing and lower energy consumption. Europe is leading the world in these technologies. You just said it. I mean, for instance, we have amazing solutions in our supercomputing centers with the new coolant. The whole electronic is immersed in fluid, and it's a fluid which is closed circuit, doesn't consume any water. So we have, and these are done by startups, European startups. So better using energy pricing and energy schemes, incentive schemes for centers, localizing data centers, simple, permitting for data centers, new technologies, incentives. These are the idea today on the table, but I think it's very much the Cloud and AI Act what we want to do out of it. So we will be, consulting extensively with all the actors and partners, and I hope that Digital Europe and the other industry associations will send us good ideas. I'm sure they will. I hope they will.
Is there a sense of urgency? Is this something that you plan to move? Roberto, if I can ask you quickly, is this? We are looking for a little bit of news. If you can, we all want to know what the new Commission is doing. So if you can.
Well, I think it's pretty clear what the Commission is doing. 3 hours of hearing per Commissioner. You heard many things. Already the guidelines. I think you will probably not see the Commission every day announcing new things. We will be constantly now working on what is the main axis, which is to put Europe on track in terms of competitiveness, and it was said and repeated many times, said by Mario Draghi and repeated today. Most of it is about getting the ICT ecosystem working well. So that will be the priority, and we will be very consistent in this priority. Sense of urgency of the cloud and development, AI development, frankly, better quality than speed. There's a kind of sense of urgency. Things are not okay. Cloud prices are going up. The market is not functioning perfectly well. So there are many reasons, and the diffusion of data centers and computing centers is not what Europe should have. So we have clearly pressing needs, but this should not induce us to rush. So the first thing is now to listen carefully what industry and market participants have to say about how we can be useful. This is the success of the CHIP Act. Although it was conceived in a short time, was totally done in cooperation with the industry. So when we landed our pilot line, our first-of-a-kind incentive schemes, our way of working with the member states, there was a sense of everybody happy because we kind of co-design the CHIP Act together. And I hope we do the same with the Cloud and AI Development Act.
Cecilia, what you're hearing from Roberto, is those the kind of things you wanted to hear?
Yes, some of them. At least I would say there is a good element. We agree. you know, what you call it will also shape what it is, right? So maybe we call it an AI and cloud adoption plan, you know, so we don't do more acts and strategies and bundle things up. I think the CHIPS Act was a very good idea on how to drive with different policy tools and regulations, right? What we would like to see is more European funding and less national pots. National pots is another fragmentation factor, and it's going to be super difficult. Permits, as you say, speeding up permits, something that is super needed also. So if there are, more national funding, ease of funding, not like waiting 5 years and then it doesn't come out anyway, and what's private funding, and so more ease of the funding programs and more European initiatives there, we would welcome that. Permit speed up, definitely. Looking at regulation sector by sector that needs to be, we call it like, we have something that we cut, simplify and incentivize, right? So on the cut, there are still a lot of regulation that is basically distorting the uptake of cloud and AI in different sectors because of legal inclarity. It might be the RED directive to the AI Act, it's the medical device directive towards the AI Act, it's the DORA, the NIS, the FIDA in the banking sector. So a lot of these sectors right now are struggling with the legal inclarity and the fear of not being compliant with the national gold plating on a little bit here and there. So we have come out with 80 proposals in a publication called The Tech Race, Winning the Tech Race, where we basically look at what can we cut and merge and harmonize and simplify in the next commission. So I hopefully some of these proposals will also be in there, so we can enable some of the sectors that really need to adopt cloud at a much higher speed right now. And then one of our proposals will definitely be that we try to look at those silver bullets that kind of gathers security and competitiveness into one. If we look at critical infrastructure right now, the future of warfare and security will be highly dependent on our ability to protect critical infrastructure supply, water, energy, connectivity, hospitals, etc., etc. So looking at what is needed there, it's cloud, it's AI, it's drones, drone jamming, it's energy efficiency technologies. And many of those technologies is exactly where Europe leads, or our allies leads. And I think, some kind of large scale in pan-European investment program to protect critical infrastructure, not only will it make sure that we become more safe and that we adopt some of the learning that we have from Ukraine right now, but it will also lift the whole environment and the European ecosystem in cloud, in AI, in drones, in energy technologies, in many of the areas where we lead today. So I think we need to look for some of these silver bullets that can really change the game on technologies. And I know in the US they are definitely they're doing it. There are a lot of tax incentives for dual use and critical technologies. There is a lot of investment going on, a lot of big procurement programs exactly on protection of critical infrastructure. And of course, that's good for us because whatever is invented with our allies is good. But if we want to keep some of these players in a market that is stagnant, I mean, we lost 30% of competitiveness compared to US in the last 20 years. And the market right now is flatlining in Europe for technology partners. In China, the market is done. It's not there anymore, more or less. And we have US, which is a growth market. If we want to become a growth market for our own champions and for our friends' champions, I think we really need to look at, how do we combine some of the not only bullets and tanks and planes that we need for defense, but really defending our critical infrastructure. And through doing that, we will bring up the whole tech environment in Europe with our allied friends, but also with our own capabilities that we have. So looking at that I think is untapped potential. We speak about defense, but we don't see where we are under attack right now and how we can change, a competitive Europe and winning the tech game in Europe by investing in exactly that.
I mean, you talked about two different things there. You're talking about incentives and you're also talking about deregulation. Which do you think could give, I know you'll say both, but which do you think could be done fairly quickly, that could really see a difference in a relatively short period of time?
I mean, everything is about political will, right? And to my knowledge, our president, I admire her very much. I mean, she's given a clear order that, all the DGs and industries, and it's a common responsibility that we analyze the different areas, amongst others, the digital regulation, and that we try to find at least, 25% or 50% that we can not only cut, but merge or make more efficient or create legal clarity. I mean, we've added this burden of 200 billion in the last per year in compliance cost on companies. And sometimes I feel that we've been complaining too much as industries, and that's why we're trying to be super concrete. I mean, what would we like to be clear? What would we like to merge? Which are the definitions that needs to be aligned across the Data Act and the European health data space, for example, just to give an example. So we came out with these 80, and I think this is the start of saying, like, okay, we have maybe 3 years to become competitive again, not to lose our own champions and our own transformative power into a digital powerhouse. So if the Commission and the Member States really are focused at, implementing, cutting the burden, the regulatory burden, we also need to give, good ideas for where do we need the investment that can bring up the whole ecosystem. So to me, cut and incentivize, there are two tools for doing the same thing, is making Europe more competitive and come back on the growth path of the digital era.
Roberta, we've heard Mrs. Virkkunen talking about deregulation, about possible areas where there could be cutbacks. Is there anything that seems to be already redundant or something where it would be fairly easy to do that? I mean, we're aware that there's also been a lot of new regulation in the last few years.
Vice President Virkkunen made very clear that she has the objective to make Europe competitive and simple in terms of the rules that are applied. I note that every debate in Brussels is just about rules. I mean, we are in love with rules. I mean, so we will do our home duties. We will do it very seriously. We already started analyzing. I mean, we have good inputs and starting analyzing if there are double reporting. I mean, things that are obsolete, things that we can quickly, take out of the rule book. People tend to forget quite quickly what has been the main goal of stabilizing the European digital space. We nearly, in all sectors now, we have regulations. That means that, for instance, in AI, no member state can regulate AI. When we speak with the startups, some of them are becoming unicorns because we have them in our computing center. We speak with them. They are quite happy about this. So now we do the magic. Stabilize the fact that there are only European rules. Eliminate, gold plating, eliminate double reporting, create, a one-stop shop for many of the things that need to be done. I think we are on good track to do the work that for EVP Virkkunen is really a priority. And the other priority is competitiveness. And there, the homework is not just for us. It's also for the European industries and actors. And Europe is open for business. That doesn't mean that we need just European investors. I mentioned chips, where we have investors coming from all over the world in Europe. So that's fine. And we are open for business and ready to embrace regulatory simplification.
Is that good news?
I think it is. I think I'm always positive, but I believe that both industry and the Commission and the Member States. Normally, as we support EU regulation in front of national gold regulation and gold plating, right? I think now it's about looking at all the things we have and make them super efficient. Say, like, how can we bring down the 200 billion to 100 billion over the next 2 years, right? And be really efficient about it. And then we need to realize in the digital era, innovation cycles in Ukraine right now, every time they innovate something, 2 to 6 weeks after the Russians have copied it. So with those kind of innovation cycles, I mean, the growth perspective, it's not about R&D money for like universities, right? If we look at our analysis of the critical technologies, you know, we don't have a problem on research and development in Europe. We have a problem of commercialization. And one of the reasons is that there is too much. I mean, when you have to hire 2 lawyers instead of 2 innovators, and that is really the case, I mean, and that's what we need to get rid of now. We need to get rid of that tremendous amount of regulatory burdens to scale. And that's not only on the Commission, it's also on the industry to really tell what are the, you know, when you are reporting on cybersecurity, why do you need to have like 5 different reports on the same to 8 different institutions in these things? And we are collecting these things now. But of course, it's something that we need to drive, and we need to support the Commission in implementing, and we need to get the member states along. But you know, when we have these programs like Horizon Europe, it's nice, it's beautiful, but I think we need to look at being much more concrete and say, Horizon Europe, how does that bring a return on investment? Who are the companies who are ready to commercialize these innovations on ground, not just make a report and then some, you know, the innovations comes up somewhere else? Can we now be creative and say, if we only have 1 to 3 years for basically boosting AI, cloud, you know, energy tech, can we take the RF, a wonderful program dedicating 20% to digital? The rest of the RF fund, I think we have 400 billion more or less that is not spent. Can we now spend them in areas where we do a boost on digital security, critical infrastructure, critical technologies at scale? Can we do pan-European procurement, for example, on some of these areas of critical technologies, energy technologies? Because the biggest problem is that we don't know how to scale. I mean, what happened with the digital revolution is that the consolidation and innovation phases went from like 25 years down to 3, right? And with that, you don't wait to scale. It's much easier to sell and then start all over and innovate again. Because if you don't have the scalability, either you go to the US to scale much faster, somewhere else in the world, or you sell off your company and you start again because you are stifled in your scalability. So I think the scalability element, and we need to be much more creative on how we invest now, how we do it agilely, and remembering that the innovation cycles are super short right now. And it is a game. On critical technology, it's a game between autocracy and democracy. It is a game between like-minded and not like-minded. This is exactly what we see in Russia and Ukraine right now, right? It's like the playground of Russia right now is Chinese technologies coming in with their testing their technologies in Russia. And for US and for Europe, we test our technologies in Ukraine. And also on how we protect infrastructure, how we use AI, how we use cloud, how we use energy tech, right? Which are all connectivity. So how do we take all the learnings from there and we build, you know, an ecosystem, amongst others, also, of course, with the US, our biggest ally, because that's the race that is at hand right now. And knowing that we only have no long-term thinking right now, because we are behind the curve. If we only have 3 years, what can we achieve, right? And who are our friends, and how can we speed up the scalability and innovative environment for them?
I mean, you talked briefly, Roberto, about the cloud market. I mean, do you see these as open markets? I mean, both cloud and AI. I mean, we do see 3 main companies dominating cloud provision, for example. Do you think there's still opportunities for others, for Europeans, to enter into that space or into nearby spaces?
Yeah, back to cloud. Yeah. I think, this market is a market that requires high level of investments. It tends to be a market where large companies dominate. This is typical of high-tech markets. So what you have to do is to create entry by, first of all, making sure that innovation can take place, and the larger companies don't stifle innovation. So they open up their systems to competition, they use open standards, and at the same time, companies can switch quickly to maybe smaller companies with more innovative solutions. Also, competition drives down prices, which is start to be a concern for many European companies, that they see that this market, some tensions about pricing, using especially the most sophisticated AI products. I mean, it's relatively expensive. So by pushing the idea of open algorithms, open source, and maybe sometime many companies don't need gigantic algorithms. They have their own data, and they can train the algorithms on their own data. And in this way, I mean, also they have much more ownership on the value, and make sure also they internalize, I mean, the development of AI. So that's why our model is, on one side, as I said, be open to everyone who wants to invest in Europe, but at the same time, creating this co-creation spaces by opening up to the idea that could be public-private partnership on large data centers, on computing centers. This is the whole idea behind the AI factories, where companies can come together, co-create, and own a big part of the value of what they do. Another thing which is very important, that is linked with the idea of simplification, is to use cloud actually to be much more effective in the interaction with other companies, so business to business, and with the public administration. And that we have an important role to play. And that's the whole idea behind the EU Business Wallet project. So in your pockets very, very soon, you will have the EU wallet, and that is nice to have your driving license, your passport, all your credentials that you can use all over Europe. For businesses, it's a bit different. I mean, it's the idea that every single administration should only have one channel in communicating, interacting, which is through this environment. And at the same time, it will work in an open way. Everyone that has an application that actually helps company to administration, business to business, being it in terms of exchanging credentials, signatures, being it AI tools for compliance, this will be part of this ecosystem, which also will drive simplification, reporting obligation, many other things. So sometimes, you know, we have learned this the hard way during the pandemic. It's better to simplify the outcome rather to look at each individual process and try the impossible to simplify them. So that's why, for us, one of the pillars of simplification will be the EU Business Wallet.
Cecilia, you represent all kinds of companies, from big tech down to small tech, down to firms that specialize in engineering. What do you think, or what do your members tell you, would be the most important ways to try and keep the cloud market open?
I mean, I think we have seen the regulation. I mean, we have multiple regulations on the cloud market, right? We have the Data Act, the Cloud Switch. We have DSA, DMA. There are so many regulations right now. I mean, I think it is open. It's very natural that there will be bigger players when there is fast consolidation in the market. So we have rules on everything that we need. I don't think we will see the rise of 5, 6 new players in a very mature market. It would be very artificial, I think. I think what we are looking for is the boost that these companies can give, and we need to be careful that we don't repeat, what we've done with of course, prices should not go sky high and all this, but we need to let the market also work in a natural way, right? There will be other innovations coming from the uptake of cloud and from the use of AI that we are already mastering super well in the, I would say, global ecosystem or international ecosystem of technologies. And I think we need to be very focused in Europe at scaling, not at, innovating small startups and scale-ups, because again, we don't have a problem there. We have the problem in commercialization and some other things. So I think we've done what it takes. Now we don't need to overemphasize that we need to let the market also work for itself. We see great partnerships between cloud providers and some of our, European champions in other industries, whether that is car manufacturing industry or green tech and et cetera. And those partnerships have, accelerated the growth of these companies. So I think it's really about adoption and uptake and not about further regulation of this.
I wanted to talk briefly about energy, which is a very complicated matter in itself, but it's something where we've heard an awful lot from the companies talking about energy efficient ships, but also how they're trying to find their own sources of energy. I mean, whether it's a nuclear power station. Where do you see that the Commission can guide some of the elements in this? I mean, if we are looking at a huge increase in cloud, it's something that does become urgent, and energy is a very slow world, even slower than tech for permitting. What do you think can be done now to try and pave the way for the energy to be available to allow cloud to scale?
Well, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and they are clearly all very important priorities. First of all, in general, the cost of energy in Europe has to go down. Again, this is Mario Draghi Dixit, and he's right, by the way. It's one of the most important elements of competitiveness. So that's where our priority is, to have a good functioning of the market, good reform of the energy market, much more a single internal market for energy. And this is the general thing. Now, diving into the cloud, and that is something that would be food for thought when preparing the AI and Cloud Development Act. One problem we see is energy hoarding. So one company comes first somewhere and then gets the kind of the total energy which is available in that area. There are certain parts of Europe, for different reasons, I mean, local regulations, I mean, emissions, whatever, that have limited the amount of energy available for data centers. To the point that somewhere, in some parts, because of this regulation, there's no data center, or there's only one company. And this is not okay. I mean, energy has to be something that everyone has the right to access, and there cannot be, I mean, first come first, or the strongest will get more energy. So equitable access to energy is one element. The other one is pushing as much as we can towards alternative energy sources, renewable and other energy sources, and make sure that the pricing for cloud and data centers, it's done in a way that reflects the type of industrial activity. So having dedicated pricing schemes, having the right wholesale contracts, especially when companies commit to use alternative energy sources, it's very important. Because, I mean, we have a system of pricing energy in Europe that does not necessarily reflects the local sourcing of energy. If a data center runs totally on alternative energy, the energy should be priced on alternative energy. Or, when possible, also think about micro networks and self-supply in certain areas. I mean, again, I'm so attached to my supercomputers. The supercomputers in Finland, I mean, Lumi runs totally on hydropower and alternative energy, and even eats the village around. So it's CO2 negative, I mean, in terms of footprint. And these are interesting, I mean, developments. And we have plenty of areas that have plenty of alternative energy, wind, hydro energy, solar, but then the pricing should reflect this kind of supply. And the other element that you mentioned it is to make sure we push to the extreme technology in terms of saving energy. In cooling, for instance, running data center at higher temperature than they do today, or really working on cooling on chips. That's the new frontier where we have all the best R&D companies of the world, and they are really potentially capable to deliver very, very innovative solutions in this respect.
Susie, did you want to jump in quickly on that? I mean, I know we do hear an awful lot from companies about what they're trying to do, but it's also a difficult one for them to.
Yeah.
To
And there is a lot of, so let me start by saying there is a lot of talk about data centers and the need of power and a lot of the rise of, right now it's around 1 to 2% of the world's consumption of power. And in the development countries, it will raise to like 7, 8%. And if you look at the total world, it's still on 1, 2%. So I mean, there are multiple other areas of pollution that needs to be addressed, agriculture and buildings and other things. And I would say, but of course, one of these things, I mean, what the tech sector does is that we are cutting edge and finding solutions on how to cutting energy, right? And if we look at some of our, again, own champions and our own strength position, as you said rightfully, we are leading in technologies that can bring down consumption, digital twins, decentralized energy systems, et cetera, et cetera. So it's also about how do we invest in future technologies in the energy grid to make sure that we consume less and that we optimize. And then, of course, some of the data centers are really, really world-leading in reuse of power to decentralized heating systems, towns around where they are located, etc. So I think we need to continue on that path, right? And of course, the problem of energy is the pricing of energy is huge. But my first advice would be look into how we can invest our way out, how we can try to bring down energy by investing in optimization of our grid, optimization of our energy mix, not how we can necessarily only regulate our way out of it.
So can I interrupt you there?
Yes,
because I would like to ask about tech sovereignty. We now have a tech sovereignty commissioner. This is an area which is US dominated. We're at a time where we're talking about a new president coming in. We're very uncertain about what we will see from that. How does Europe remain tech sovereign in these circumstances? We do hear about that there should be more. There aren't so many European players in this space. But how do you see Europe managing that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, let's take tech sovereignty. It's referring to what I said before, that there is a game between democracy and autocracy going on, and the international tech ecosystem is not European, it's international. And let's hope that the democratic liberal world wins that game. Without each other, we cannot. Let's just look at US, how dependent they are on, Nokia, Ericsson, 5G, or how they are using some of our absolutely cutting-edge drone technologies, how they are investing in onboarding, European companies into the US ecosystem for good reasons. I mean, if we look at the growth of the European champions, their, revenue growth is highly linked to North America. So without each other, we are not sovereign, because Europe leads in connectivity. We lead in some of the world-leading energy tech, biotech, quantum. We are very strong on, unfortunately not on commercialization, but on innovation on quantum. Whereas we look at US, they lead in cloud, they lead in AI, where the headquarters are the companies. If we keep that critical dual-use technology market open and really use each other's strength, I think US has been very wise. They have said, welcome to everybody who's innovative. Please produce in US. And what we don't need now is this kind of ownership controls and a war between where is yours and mine. We need everybody who's our friends to invest heavily in Europe. And we need our own companies to come back and invest heavily in Europe. So that's the game. How can we attract the world's leading friends, like-minded investments to come and work also here in Europe, including our own? I think that's sovereign to me, that we are a part of a liberal democracy like-minded community where we attract and work together on the most cutting-edge technologies to win the tech game.
Roberto, it's always hard asking a Commission official about politics, but I have a question here from Boeing.
Let's try.
And they ask,
You can always try.
They ask, how do you see the EU-US relationship impacting or not the uptake of cloud and AI in Europe? And do you see the TTC still remaining as a key way of cooperating?
We are more than ever determined to work cooperatively with the incoming US administration. This has been clearly said by our president, by my vice president Virkkunen, and the TTC has been a very good instrument. I mean, I've lived it from inside the engine from the very beginning. It allows very direct contact with my counterparts and the political counterparts to discuss, to fix. There have been many things, I mean, fixed over the air. I mean, in minutes that maybe I mean, publicly it's difficult to see, but a phone call can do a lot. I mean, sometimes to solve a problem. So maintaining good relationship, good contact, peer contact will be extremely important. And clearly, it's an offer from the European side, and I have no reason to believe that this offer will not be taken to continue such an experience and even to improve it if possible. As Cecilia was saying, I mean, the US-EU relationship is quintessential for the stability of the world, for the free world. So there are many important reasons: the business, the political reasons, the peace and democracy, why the relationship will need to function well. And I think everybody will be, I mean, really working hard to make sure that this relations works well.
Thank you. Sorry, Cecilia, did you want to leave us with a final
I'm just
thought?
saying that of course, I mean, it will probably not be called the TTC anymore, but we have supported the TTC, been highly involved, and it's been an amazing tool for collaboration in the last administration. What I think, I mean, we've been calling for when the elections just happened, a critical technology and dual-use technology council, right? Because I think the bridge between all the fight, I think our president said something. She said, in the fight between democracy and autocracy, digital is no sideshow, it's at the heart. And I think she was very right. She was spot on. And I think basically technologies will be that bridge in the two next, both for the next commission and for the next administration. It's a game that we need to win, and if we don't win it, we will not have the stability going forward, and the economic, both the economic and the military stability that we have today.
Well, that's a hopeful thought and a warning for us to end on. I'd like to point to our poll. So we asked, what do you consider to be the biggest barrier to cloud adoption in Europe? And we had anti-competitive practices at 41%, regularity complexity at 38%, a lack of skilled professionals at 22%, and legacy IT systems at 20%. And cost concerns, although we were talking about pricing, comes in, it just moved up to 13%. There you are. This is real-time information. Thank you very much to Cecilia and to Roberto for joining us. And thank you for everybody who's in the room today and for joining us at home or in your office. And thank you very much to Google for making this happen. And we'd love to hear your feedback. So feel free to email us about the event at live@politico.eu. You can also check our Politico events website. We're near the end of the year now, but there will be many more in the year to come. Please take a look and you can see and hear from all the experts in the latest policy and politics domains. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
If we do not renew our partnerships with the rest of the world, Europe will not be relevant.
We can make it if we are together as Europeans.
Do you genuinely believe that countries will manage to reach these very ambitious targets?